Greetings to you, friends. Sunday, the 1st of January in the year 2023. Not forgetting, as I keep pointing out, that the Julian Gregorian calendar is not your friend, never was your friend. Very much a friend of popes and princes of old who had a commandeering of the human spirit in mind and the harvest of humanity and all of that stuff. We're going to be speaking a little to that subject of the sacrifice of innocence and the harvest of humanity, which of course is what the priest-banker class was all about, and which is why we have the need to have truth and disclosure movements and good whistleblowers and truth is coming forward to speak truth to power at this epochal time in our so-called civilizational wheel. I'm very happy today to be bringing on a few guests. Normally we do 15 to 20 guests, as you know. And we've changed the format and just focusing on 3 or 4 signature guests moving forward so we can get a deeper dive on what's really taking place. Just for the sheer hell of it, let's have some talking points by way of introduction. I have to ramble for 5 minutes as our numbers accumulate. Thank you for jumping on, friends. Boom, boom. Let's take a look at this. The only reason why the government would want to disarm you after 243 years is because they intend to do something that you would shoot them for. Well, funny, but true. Funny, but true. Time, person of the year, the tinfoil hat. Well, that's you and me, folks. And I do think it's about time we got given the accolade. Interesting fact, a woke fail. Disney lost $123 billion in market value in the last year. Can you believe it? As shares dropped 44%, the worst year since 1974. Now, the question is not why did that happen, but why don't we know about it? Why is that not frontline, strapline news stuff on every single syndicated news channel in the world? It would be if it played into the liberalist, Marxist, socialist agenda, into this Fabianist, Tavistokian agenda. We would know all about facts like that. Scotty Sachs will doubtless speak a little to that. I also want to show you another photograph. Boom, there. These images, there's many of them around, friends, and you really want to do yourself a favor and check them out. No, it's not a grotesque conspiracy. This is connected to a subject which is fast becoming, in my not so humble view, one of the single most important areas of focus for our species, which is the correcting of history. If you know anything about anything, you will know that probably 85% thereabouts, and that's my estimation, and I happen to know it's correct, 85% thereabouts of the status quo, what we think we know in respect of history, geography, geology, astrophysics, name any discipline you like. It's all part of the same cataclysm, the same abomination and calamity of disinformation, double disinformation, misinformation, and orchestration. This is the Sabbatean hand, the Sabbatean agenda. This is how a great many of the hallowed halls of learning were subverted many, many centuries ago, in point of fact, when you go to Oxford and Cambridge and some of those, some of the great universities like the Al-Azhar in Egypt, over 1,000 years old. They didn't start off being perverted, but they certainly were commandeered in the main and subverted. Learning has been bastardized, and this is partly why we arrive at this calamity where we are faced now with our own reckoning, which of course is happening at the level of intervention at the mRNA and DNA level. Okay, don't need to sell my conscious audience on the seriousness of this and the gravity of the subject, because as I mentioned in my Pulse report a couple of days ago, you will know, every one of us will be able to look over our shoulder this year and reflect on the fact that we saw a great many deaths amongst friends, amongst family, amongst colleagues. Serious stuff, very serious stuff, and very sad and saddening stuff indeed. But the fact of the matter is that we have grotesque agendas underway. I'm not going to go into much more detail here, don't need to. We've spent literally thousands of hours of broadcasting truth. I myself have spoken to probably over 200 of the world's leading epigeneticists, medical scientists, microbiologists, and you name it. Please excuse the geese in the background. That's why we call this the Guerrilla News. I happen to have to broadcast wherever I am in the world. This week I happen to be in the Yucatan, and I can't help it. They've got geese next door, and they've been keeping me awake at night. Look, friends, I'm going to move on. I've just taken up 6 minutes of your time. Very quickly, bring Scotty Sachs in. Scotty, good to see you.
Good morning, Sacha. Happy New Year, and Happy New Year to all of our
and to you, brother. Are we likely to see anything akin to real truth and disclosure in the year 2023?
Probably a little more so, Sacha. But to answer the question, I think it's a good question. Why we don't hear about Disney's epic financial woes and losses? Simply put, in addition to the Disney brand, they own ABC television network. They own ESPN, and they own Hulu. These are all seminal brands and, key parts of their ecosystem, of their matrix, of their mainstream media bullshit. All of the Disney brands are up to no good. From what we know about Disney today, they cannot afford to let the cat out of the bag that their brands are failing.
Right.
So we hear nothing about it because these seminal brands, so-called seminal brands, we know they're all a bunch of baloney, but ABC, ESPN, Hulu, think of those names in the world of media and broadcasting. They can't afford to have those names degenerated and knocked down a peg.
Indeed. So it is still a lockdown in that sense, a sequestration of truth, and the Associated News Network, AP, and all the rest of them still in the hands, by best accounts, of the Sabbateans, or would you say there's a transition? I know we've got SG Anon coming on later, and Scott McKay, and we might be able to drill down a little deeper into that. But the hegemony of the Sabbatean agenda against truth, disclosure, media, academia, emphasis mainstream media, you think that is still held by the dark hand, so to speak?
Well, Sacha, there's a huge crack in the door there. As I reported on this show a few weeks ago, a memorandum hit CNN a couple months back. They're under new management, so-called new management, and the memo referred to Donald J. Trump having his hands on the management team. So clearly the White Hat Alliance has made some inroads into, without military. That's the key. They've done it without the military storming, the castle. And the military could have stormed the castle any time on the mainstream media. But we know that's not the path the alliance wanted to take. So there is a great crack in the door, Sacha. I believe the infiltration and subversion from the good guys, the White Hats, is underway.
Very good to hear. Thank you, Scotty. I'll bring you back shortly. Okay, friends. Next up, Loy Brunson, U.S. Constitution expert. Loy Brunson appeared on over 60 national TV shows with his brothers, known simply as the Brunson brothers, in the late 1980s and 1990s. He is a constitutional political scientist, activist, and documentary filmmaker. He contributed 2 improvements to the National Center for Constitutional Studies version of the Constitution booklet that was implemented in their 14 million printing. And Loy has, I don't know what that means, 14th million printing? I need to know what that means. Loy has been involved in politics himself and ran for the Utah seat in the U.S. Senate most recently in 2022. Loy, very happy to have you on board with the Arise Guerrilla News.
Great to be here. Thanks, Sacha.
Sir, explain to us, what exactly are you up to?
Well, my brothers and I launched 2 federal lawsuits against members of Congress who refused to vote for a 10-day, or for an investigation, basically. It was a 10-day pause that Ted Cruz wanted to see happen. And so we were pretty upset about that. So we filed a lawsuit in federal court with my name as the plaintiff. And then the 3 of us decided we should do another one as well. My case got bogged down a bit. We actually had to... My case was actually served by the U.S. Marshal Service. The summons and complaint was actually served by the U.S. Marshal Service on March 31st, 2021. So about 80 members of Congress were served. My summons complaint, Nancy Pelosi, Maxine Waters, Adam Schiff, and others. And then the federal court did something really bizarre. They canceled it, called it back, said it was a clerical error, canceled my filing. Well, they can't do that. So we took them to the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals with what you call a petition for writ of mandamus, complaining about the lower court. And that didn't help us. So we took them to state court, both courts to state court. And we lost, but in the end we won, because after that was all finished, the federal court not only allowed me to refile my case, but they filed it for me, and they ordered the clerk of the court to issue 388 summonses. Now that federal case is still alive. That has not been dismissed or decided upon. That's still alive in federal court. So meanwhile, the court that is in the case that's in front of the United States Supreme Court right now is Roland J. Brunson. My brother's the petitioner, the plaintiff, and he started in state court, moved it, the U.S. attorneys moved it to federal court, and then the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. And one of the interesting facets of this case is the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals would not make a decision. So them not making a decision makes it impossible to take it to the U.S. Supreme Court. And that was our goal at the beginning of this, is we'll probably lose in the lower courts, but we're going to take it all the way to U.S. Supreme Court. So for the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals to not make a decision was very frustrating. And so after about 4 months of nothing happening, we dug deeper into the rules and found a United States Supreme Court Rule 11 that allows us, if we can prove to the Supreme Court that it's a national emergency, they will let us bypass the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals decision. And so we submitted that to them, and about 5 days later, we received a phone call from the clerk's office. Now, the clerk of the court is not a justice clerk. The clerk of the court is Scott Sessions Harris. For 11 years, he was the attorney for the Supreme Court. And so a case analyst assigned to our case called us, told us that they had decided to allow us to bypass the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. In other words, they are allowing us under Rule 11, national emergency, to go ahead and file this petition. But they also wanted us to include some additional materials. They asked us if we would include some things that are not necessary. For example, they asked us if we would put in the motion to dismiss that was used to fight us in the federal court by the U.S. attorneys. And so we did that. We prepared that all ready to go. And as we were about to send them off, and it's quite a process. You're supposed to have it perfect bound like a book. It's, there's a certified word count. I mean, there's a lot to this. And so just like a couple of days before we're ready to have a perfect bound, the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals makes a decision. And so we're thinking, oh my gosh, what do we do now? So we called the clerk of the court, the clerk's office, said the 10th Circuit has made a decision. Can we just get it to you with the Rule 11 information? Because it's a lot of work. It takes time to reformat it. They said, no, take that out. You don't need it anymore. And get it to us as soon as you can. And then they said, how soon do you think you can get it to us? My brother says, well, it's going to take about 2 weeks. And the case analyst said, well, would like to get it sooner than 2 weeks. Can you please? And so we got it done in about a week. We got it off to them, and it was docketed. We sent it on a Thursday. They got it on a Friday, and they docketed it on Monday. And the docket showed that it was received and filed the day we sent it, which was pretty cool. And then they also asked us they sent us some paperwork. They asked us to send a waiver to the U.S. attorneys, asking them to waive their right to oppose this petition. And so we got that to the U.S. attorneys. They didn't do anything with it. And then about 30 days later is the deadline for the U.S. attorneys to oppose it, and they haven't done anything. So we're checking the docket the 23rd of November, which is the deadline day, and we see that the U.S. attorneys are no longer attorneys of record, that they are not representing the 388 defendants anymore, but the United States Solicitor General is, and that the Solicitor General actually files a waiver waiving their last right to oppose this petition before it goes into conference. So, and then January 6th is the date set for conference.
Right. I'm very keen to ask one question of you. With the experience that you've had over the years, what exactly is your takeaway on the U.S. legal system? On a scale of 1 to 10 for the layman, how corrupt?
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting. First of all, if we had gone to an attorney, if we'd gone to a law firm, they would not have allowed us to file in state or federal court. So we went to the wrong court, basically. This type of case is supposed to be going to a special claims court, and you can't do that unless you have permission to do it. You have to get permission from the sergeant at arms. You have to get a waiver to even do it. So we were breaking the rules right at the get-go. But the exciting thing about this is the U.S. attorneys were playing ball with us. They were arguing and pleading in federal court. As a matter of fact, when we took the two federal courts to state court, the U.S. attorneys actually in their pleadings agreed and asked for an extension if the judge were to allow our full summary judgment motion, which we had filed, because we had information that they had given us in my brother's case that we were able to use to file a full summary judgment motion, which means we wouldn't need a trial. It was so obvious. They admitted wrongdoing. So obviously they were able to do that. And so they were playing ball with us. So what we found, my brother's the legal brain behind all this. What he has found and what his application was, following their rules better than they follow them. They're not following their own rules.
Right.
And they're not following the Constitution. And so we were playing by their rules in their arena and winning.
Right. I mean, that's kind of applying across the board, because the entire planetary matrix of technocracy and bureaucracy and banking and high street and, public, just customer services, just trying to get someone to answer a goddamn telephone these days. Everything is under seizure and collapse. So, of course, it's going to find its way into the judiciary, and the judicial system is going to be one of the greatest casualties of that systemic collapse. So, in your view, the system is broke entirely?
Well, I wouldn't say that. I would say that they are violating the system, and they're breaking their own rules, and we're holding them accountable to that. And like in the federal court, they wouldn't let me file my case. Well, we kept beating them over the head with this constitutional authority, federal and state constitutional authority, their oath of office, state court, challenging them in state court. And we were blown away that even after we lost in state court on jurisdiction, that the federal court reversed their decision and unblocked my case. And explain that. It's like we're still kind of scratching our heads over that. How did that happen? It's like we were holding them accountable with their oath and the Constitution they've sworn to uphold. And it's almost like we penetrated their conscience on some level. It was so obvious we were right that they broke down and allowed this to move forward. And now we're at the Supreme Court, and the justices the court's reacting so positively to this. It's just kind of really blowing our minds that we're able to succeed to the level that we've been able to succeed to.
Well, indeed, I have to say, no wonder all eyes are on you at the moment, because it is landmark stuff. It truly is landmark stuff. I know that Scotty Sachs has probably have a question or two for you. So let's bring a mainstream voice in here, will we? Scotty, over to you.
Hello, Loy. Good to see you again. I had a chance to ask you this question on our national Take Your Power Back voter fraud initiative. You were on last week with us, and I asked you something, and I think the answer is very important for people to hear. When your case hit the Supreme Court docket, many people felt that the Brunson brothers were attached to some higher power authority other than God, that you guys were working with some white hat alliance group or some bigger power was behind the case. But in fact, this is just the Brunson brothers working on behalf of we the people. You guys did this on your own, didn't you?
You're absolutely right. And my brother, the legal mind behind it all, you can see the docket. He's had 2 petitions that the Supreme Court docketed, and he's been fighting banks for years. So it had nothing to do. As a matter of fact, we weren't sure to go public with this. We just thought, well, no one will really, support it. No one will really get excited about it. We really felt alone. And so this is a whole cultural experience, a new cultural experience I'm experiencing with people that are supporting this case, because we had no idea we would get the support that we have. We didn't think anyone would really support it.
Really critically important people understand that we the people have the power to do this. This is not some higher authority or some powerful group in Washington, a lobbyist group or a white hat group that's got lots of money behind it. This is the Brunson brothers, their legal mind, and your collective effort as a team of brothers.
Well, actually, that was my next question. My question was, what are the legal, financial implications or burdens that you have to be prepared to bear when you walk this walk, Loy?
Yeah, well, it's taken a tremendous amount of time. And see, my background has been constitutional, where I've self-published books and researched and spoken and run, at some races. And so we've incurred some pretty severe financial setbacks because of our engagement in this full time, but the actual costs have really been quite minimal. We've had attorneys look at this and tell us that if we had had attorneys prepare all the pleadings and litigate all this, it would be upwards about $2 million worth of litigation, 2 federal lawsuits, and then suing in state court, 2 federal courts. And so, but because of my brother's experience, he has a $50,000 printer. It's like, he's like one law firm. It's like he's doing more work than attorneys do because attorneys have clerks. He didn't have any clerks helping him. I mean, my brother Roland and I would help him, but it's like a tremendous amount of work. It's just, we're just blown away at the amount of work, paperwork, and putting all the litigation stuff together my brother's able to do. And he's biting at the bits right now. He says, we're going to take this case that's still alive in federal court, move that forward at some point as well.
And
so
ultimately, does the remedy include financial remedy?
Yes, we're asking for $1 million per cause of action per defendant, except for 3 defendants. We're asking for $25 million per cause of action. We don't know if that's going to happen. If it does, and we want to funnel that into constitutional education. Because right now we're excited. People are realizing how powerful the oath really is, but how it's been demeaned and it's been trashed. And with state and federal legislation, they've given themselves immunity. And that's a big constitutional issue in this complaint, in this petition. They can't do that. Article 6 is very clear, shall be bound by oath to this Constitution. No creating immunity laws. In the state of California, they even have perjury statute that gives politicians a free pass. The wording is excluding politicians. They can lie when they take the oath of office and not be charged with perjury. Wow. So it's educating people.
Pesky Constitution rearing its head again, right?
Yeah.
So what do you expect on January 6th?
Gosh, we're so hopeful. We've been studying the Supreme Court Rule 11. This is an act of war, actually. When you lose a war, what do? They put in their leadership, right? So this is a national emergency already characterized by the Supreme Court as such, and an act of war. And so under Rule 11, the Supreme Court has the full power to completely adjudicate the complaint, not just reverse or uphold a lower court decision, but they have the full power to completely grant all the reliefs, execute it in any way they want. They have John Doe's 1 through 100. They can add defendants to the case, and they can just completely make an incredible transition with this case, even before January 6th. But January 6th could roll around, and they could decide that they want to make this public and move forward with it to a hearing. So we have no idea. We speculate based on our experiences with them, and the fact that they set January 6th as the date. They didn't have to set January 6th as the date.
No.
To me, that's a messaging. That's a positive message of confidence. So we're about it in the dark as much as anyone else. We have no idea what's happening. We're just hoping for the best, praying for the best, and we're getting tons of letters. I guess over 50,000 letters have gone to the Supreme Court, and that's before it goes out of conference. This many letters, that's unheard of.
Right.
And so they're getting a tremendous amount of support from we the people.
Did you ever consider raising a law fund through crowdsourcing? Did you give that consideration?
We've thought about it, and now if this goes to a hearing, then we're gonna need millions of dollars to battle that out. And so it's gaining a lot of publicity and notoriety. People are going to 7discoveries.com, and they're buying my Constitution book that has information in it and concepts that we've used in the complaint that has been very helpful. And people are like donating, gifting $1,000 to get a signed copy of the exact petition that the Supreme Court is reviewing. And so people are helping us that way. And so the letter writing, and people are putting $1 in letters, that are duplicated what they're sending to the Supreme Court. So we're getting some pretty cool support. But
very good. Yeah. Well, there's nothing more terrifying to those gibbering sock puppets in Capitol Hill than an honest man clutching the fucking Constitution. I mean, it's so dangerous, isn't it? God bless you. It's sure a positive feeling, and to see even the court reverse its decision and letting me file based on constitutional pleadings, we're pretty excited. Fantastic. Scotty, any last questions?
Loy, why don't you quickly tell people about the letter writing campaign that I think 107 has head up?
Yeah, he's just basically write a simple from the heart letter to the United States Supreme Court, encouraging them to make the right decision, to honor the oath of office and its power and its binding power, and to move this case forward in a positive way for America, and then write a copy of it or a photocopy of it, send it to the Brunson brothers. You can go to 7discoveries.com. There's some addresses there for the court and also for us, the Brunson brothers. And then Juan's telling people to put $1 in, which is pretty cool. You don't have to do that. But that's pretty cool to do that. So yeah, I guess we have 50 to 60,000 letters so far, and that is just unbelievable considering it hasn't made it out of conference yet. But more letters are pouring in, and I would like to tell people, don't hesitate. Don't feel like it's too late, because even if it doesn't move forward, we can file a motion for reconsideration and start this whole ball game over again, and then we have this other federal case that's alive and well and has not been dismissed. So the ball game isn't over no matter what happens, but we're hoping for a real positive execution of this whole thing before January 6th. We'll see what happens.
That's beautiful. Well, look at that lovely message coming in. These brothers answered the call from their Heavenly Father. The world benefits by their efforts. Yes, indeed it does. Friends out there, we've got a pretty big audience. If anyone has any burning questions for Loy, well, this is not a Q&A session, but I'm actually just deciding on my feet to change the format, Scotty. I think it might be nice to have some audience participation on New Year's Day. If anyone has any serious technical question that they want me to put to Loy, you've got T-minus 30 seconds to do that. But Loy, I have to say, I'm very excited about the case. Joanna informs me from the production room that we're going to be making sure that we publish all of your the links and videos about the letters with the replay of this broadcast, and we'll be posting it widely on social media regularly and ghosting what it is that you and your brothers are doing. Where can people best find you right now?
Yeah, 7 Discoveries. That's the number 7. Discoveries, plural, 7discoveries.com. That's the best place. And there's other information there. There's even a phone number if someone wants to call in with a credit card and make some kind of a purchase that way too. But 7discoveries.com is the best place, and it has links to other places to go. You can see the update of the case. You can see like the docket in real time, basically all the cases leading up to this and other information.
Terrific. Well, Loy, thank you very much for joining us today. And like I said, we're going to stay in touch with you on the case. And thank you so much for all you're doing.
Great. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Sacha.
Much
Thank
love.
you both.
Bye-bye now. Yay. Let me bring Scotty back in. What a fantastic human being. What a fantastic.
Boy, they're heroes. I mean, to take the time and the money, they've spent a lot of their own money to follow this through, to get on the docket of the U.S. Supreme Court. It's quite a feat. And it really does show the power of we the people. You know, it really does demonstrate we can do this. We can use the framework of the Constitution to take our country back.
Indeed. Just a note here, folks, docket 22-380, 22-380. That comes from Joanna in the production room. Okay, Scotty, I want to bring Bruno Mihailescu on a little earlier. I'm going to bring you in. You might want to watch closely and then fashion a couple of questions for him. Stand by, Scotty. All right, friends. As you know, I spent an awful lot of my time in Romania, in Bucharest. In fact, I'm pretty much regarding Romania and Bucharest as my base in Europe. And I love the people, and I love the country. So much about the place. The cosmogenetic story of Bruno, Christ, forgive me. Yes, of Bruno, but of Romania is something I've been speaking to in multiple media drops in the last year, especially. But it's a very special place because of the archaeo-cosmological role that it plays and the significance that it holds in archaeocosmology and the cosmogenesis, which is to say the origin of our story, the seeding of humanity, of the Adamites, of the angelics, and the bloodlines, the noble bloodlines, which issued a very long time ago, have been highly corrupted and infiltrated and commandeered in recent centuries, for good reason. One of the biggest secrets in Romania is connected to the Buceci Mountains. And I'm going to have a discourse in a moment with Bruno on both the Buceci Mountains and what's been discovered inside them. And also I want to discuss the Andrew Tate saga with Bruno. So please, friends, welcome Bruno Mihailescu. Good to see you.
Happy New Year, Sacha, and Happy New Year to
and
everybody.
To you. Thank you, Bruno. And let's start off with the Andrew Tate. So stand by. I'm just going to quickly play something very short here. One moment. How do I do this? I've got to go to settings. No, I don't go to settings. I have to share my screen. Present. That's it. Video file. There we go. Stand by, friends. This is a short video.
And I'm going to say this on this podcast now, because I say it in every other one. I would never, ever kill myself. I truly believe they're going to come and they're going to try and kill me on a long enough time frame, because they tried to shut me up and I won't shut up. They're going to try and put me in jail. They're going to kill me. And I would never kill myself under any circumstances ever. And the reason I say this, and I say this to people, and they go, but what can they put you in jail for? And I'm like, how ignorant are you in your ignorance to believe they need a reason? You believe it's fair. You believe I can get a lawyer and prove myself innocent. That's not how it works. They decide you're guilty long before and they find a reason why. And it doesn't matter what you do about it, you will pay the fucking price. It's not fair. None of it is. Every single system's corrupt. It actually annoys me when people say that to me. Well, just get a lawyer. Why? They can't put you in jail if you're innocent. Yes, they fucking can. And that's what people don't understand about the world. They can and they do and they fucking will. And that's what's...
Okay, well, he drops more F-bombs in a minute than I do, which one good reason for appreciating him. But it's worrying because if the takedown of Andrew Tate, just a few miles away from where you're sitting right now, Bruno, in Bucharest in the last 48 hours, if that is what we are being generally led to believe, that it's a real event and not an orchestration event, then it is a serious matter. It's a serious matter because he is one of the biggest influencer icons in the world today, if not the biggest in the last 2 to 3 weeks. Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan, high caliber. Love him or hate him. Yes, there seems to be a healthy dose of misogyny in the guy. I don't find that attractive. I don't like the watches and the yachts and the private jets. I think it's gauche and I think it's cheap, and I don't think it's sexy either. But I do think that promoting manliness is sexy. I do think that boys all around the world need to be hyped up as boys and invited to drop their balls and step up as men. And I think that a lot of women around the world, especially the ones with blue hair and 3 tits, are the ones that need to seriously move, to the left of the center stage roundabout now, because that perverse liberal Fabianist transgenderfied agenda is what it is. It's Molokite, Baphomet worshipping satanic nonsense. Even if the blue-haired, 3-titted idiots don't know it, they are caught up in Luciferianism, in false light iconography. It's disgusting. It's polluting the minds and the hearts of our children and our grandparents, come to think of it. So Andrew Tate, in the year 2022, being arrested in Technicolor by Romanian police with their stun guns and their pistols and all the rest of it. Bruno, were we witnessing a theatrical production by the forces, special forces in Bucharest, or are we seeing a real event?
Well, I make some research these days, and I discover interesting things about the character. He is a young guy. He make money by different kind of businesses. I'm not here to disclose this. He like Romania, and the beautiful part that this gentleman is doing for our country is that it's promoting Romania at the highest level. I mean, I pay respect for that, but I understood that everything, it was quite orchestrated. The media knew about the arrest. We have some footages when he's smiling with the police officers in the car.
Was that real? Because I saw that in the back of the car, some telephoto lens got
Yeah.
him in the back of the special ops vehicle, and he was laughing like a kid and pointing
true.
at the paparazzi. Was that from yesterday, definitely, or was that an old piece of footage?
No. Actually, it's more a hit of his image. So they want to put him down because of the way he described things and speak the truth. Actually, he's speaking the truth, about the corruption, about everything it's possible, good and bad, okay? Bad for the system, good for the people of Romania. So I think it was an orchestration to put him down for the image. He banned him from YouTube, from many social media.
Okay, but sorry to interrupt you, but we're getting lost in translation here, because an orchestration means a theatrical production. It's not a theatrical production. It's they're trying to make a lesson out of him.
Yes.
So in that case, it's not a theatrical production. It's a real event. That's the distinction I'm trying to make here, in your view.
In my view, after I make some investigation, it was a hit on his image.
Okay. And is he likely to be detained for 30 days or get released?
Probably he will get released. I don't know.
He's a flight risk with a private jet and all the rest of it. He's a flight risk, and so normally they like to hold and detain people if they think they have the power and the money to jump out of town. So they'll ground his jets and they'll put him under kind of house arrest, probably, right?
Yes, until they see if it's true what they investigate or not. I don't believe so. I think it was a little bit to rush to shut him down, and they come in power with the police, with the guns and stuff like that. It's happened second time already.
I know, but why would the Romanian authorities be so stupid as to do that against their own image? To take down a man who's very, very popular all around the world, who's speaking truth. Why would they do that? Were they following orders from George Soros and Joseph Biden? I mean, do you think they were just following orders from the central banksters?
No, I think at the level that he might disturb somebody, it was kind of ego to put him down, because a man in his position, like he claimed that with money you can reach a minister and police.
Okay, got it.
So he might get some people there.
Right. But he's not going to be able to pick the phone up to the prime minister like he was saying, I can do that anytime, right? Okay.
Correct.
All right.
I think he reached some high level people, and probably they didn't manage to pay them and stuff like that.
Okay, well, because,
these guys, they want some action from people like him.
When I'm with you, in Bucharest, in our offices there with the general, and we have intelligence chiefs coming in, we have senators coming in, we have parliamentary leaders coming in, we have police chiefs coming in, good ones, we have good military people coming in. So I know that we can reach good, powerful people in Romania. If we want to, we could pick up the phone and do that. But the difference is, in his case, maybe he didn't know exactly who the good actors are and who the bad actors are in power, right? And so there's a kind of war going on. We know this in Romania, right? I've been speaking about it. There's a political and intelligence war going on in the basement, right? Speak a bit about that.
When people like him from abroad with millions, and they come to show off and go in clubs and bring 17 sport cars for millions of dollars, of course they get into the first page and get attention to everywhere. And once you are in this position, of course you get connected with the people that run the show. And probably, you know what, they always do try to blackmail these kind of people, because, they have money, it's an opportunity for them. And I think didn't play with them. So this is why these things happen.
Oh, when you say he didn't let them drive his Lamborghinis.
Maybe.
Oh, it's so simple, isn't it, Scotty? What do you think about that?
Oh, Bruno, it's good to see you. Always love your energy.
Oh
Bruno,
my God. Thank
you're
you.
a guy,
Happy New Year.
Bruno, that can tell people to eat shit with a smile on your face, and I love that about you.
Thank you, Scotty.
Bruno, what is the significance of this guy, Andrew Tate? What's the real importance of his situation?
You know what? I'm gonna meet him and I'll tell you. You know what? In my experience here in Bucharest, in Romania, and traveling around the world, I meet so many people like him. They are like a shooting stars. They appear like that, boom, light the sky, and then gone. It's a young guy, ambitious. He's looking for his image. He got his gift to speak to the world, and probably a lot of people go after him. But you know what? I like more people like you that speak to the world, to the millions of people, reality.
Hang on, but I like Lamborghinis and women, fast cars.
Well, when you come here, I will bring him to drive you around.
Don't need that. Okay, Bruno. So, Scott, with the link to Andrew Tate and the whole saga going on, is there any particular questions that you have, other questions to ask on this, or should I move on to the Bucecci Mountains?
Yeah, I did want to ask Bruno a question. I had Bruno and Marvin. We've done an interview for Sovereign Radio that'll air in January. And I forgot to ask you, Bruno, you work with a lot of very advanced technologies. And I did not get to ask you during that interview, what are they hiding from us? What healing technologies are the globalists hiding from the world?
You mean the globalist or us?
We're the ones hiding the technologies at the moment, Scotty, but not for long. 2023 is our year. We've made the decision, right, Bruno?
Correct. You know what? They have everything. I mean, I believe the globalists, they know the secrets how to be healthy and live over 100 years. They know exactly how the human organism work, and probably they have already alchemy. They don't eat food, so they only eat something very small. But the beauty is that it's the time that all the technologies to be released to the world, and it's not only us that we do. So there are a lot of other people worldwide. They are focusing to share solutions, especially to those that take the wrong decisions to get a shot or something. And people now, they see everything what is in the sky. They are connected with the radiation for the 5G. I see a lot of people very sick because of that. And I see a lot of people go to the pharmacy to buy drugs, unfortunately. And I think that it's much easier solutions to get healthy if you know and if you have the right information with everything that God gave us from our earth.
Stand by there. We'll be doing a press conference. We haven't set the date yet, but it'll probably be very close to the spring equinox. And we're planning on a press conference in Bucharest to make announcements there, Scotty, that I think will completely satisfy your questions vis-a-vis not just the healing technologies, but also energy systems and other breakthrough technologies. I mean, the time has palpably come and arrived. The question really is the status quo or the corrupt deep state establishment, are they still able to hold the door shut? Are they able to? And the answer is no, they're not, but for a whole host of different reasons. But we know that it's an exponential curve right now of truth and disclosure. And what Bruno just said about lights in the sky is entirely correct. It's got everything to do with that, because simultaneous to the emancipation of humanity in relationship to our own understanding of our genetic code and our cosmogenesis, as we begin to understand and comprehend and cogitate and accept our cosmogenetic story, that we are the galactic hybrids, so to speak. We are the aliens. We are the ET. And we were always that. And yes, we've been intervened with, and that's an ongoing narrative, or has been an ongoing cyclical narrative for billions of years. And we are the angelics, but we're also cross-fertilized with limitless genetic strains from all across the multiverse. That's just who and what we are. When we awaken within the dream, within that dream spell, and remember, rekindle our Christed remembrance, the Christed cloak or mantle. That's the importance of the awakening. Is it's not to do with are we going to have fair politics, or are we going to finally be able to step away from 40-hour working weeks? Those are mundane questions. The real question is, are we able to activate Merkaba? Are we going to be able to activate our super nature, our higher fifth dimensional, so to speak, consciousness? And are we going to be able to communicate psionically and telepathically? Are we going to be able to think of things and manifest them? And the answer to all of that is yes, absolutely, categorically, in our lifetimes, because we are also on the immortal axiomatic shift of the immortal, where we know that the human genetics are designed to live for thousands of years. This notion of 70 years in the biblical tradition is an absolute bullshit. It's a grand deception, which promulgated by the satanic Roman Catholic Church. The idea that you live 70 years and 10 and you've had a good innings, off you go. Well, you have enough hundreds of millions of people thinking that and projecting that plasma, that ideation into the field. You've just manifested reality in the hologram, baby. And that's what this is all about. And that's what Andrew Tate is all about. That's what mainstream media is all about. That's what academia is all about. That's what Hollywood's all about. That's what Walt Disney's all about. And so when you see Disney tanking 44% shares in one calendar year, you're saying 44% of the dream spell machine has just tanked in the last year. That's what I mean by exponential. This is happening in real time in Technicolor, but we have to be very, very mindful and in a state of witness, a state of grace, to be able to appreciate the gravity of where we stand as witness to what's taking place. And that's the great beauty of where we're at. Sorry for ranting on. Any other questions for Bruno there?
Yeah, well said, Sacha. Bruno, rumor has it you're starting an Arise Guerrilla Romania.
You know what? It's up to
he can't afford the license, Scotty.
I'm gonna get some shares from our company.
Yeah, we are thinking of setting that up with Martin. Martin is likely to be a chief anchor there. Obviously, he's been transitioning from mainstream media into our mainstream media, which is you've been maintaining for the last 2 years, Scotty. We are the new mainstream media in that sense. I think you're probably right. Look, very briefly, I've got let me just see if my other guest, yes, our other guest has arrived. Joanne, just give me thumbs up from the green room. Is SG Anon ready to come on? Is that a yes or a no? Okay, stand by. Scotty, I'm going to bring you back in. Bruno, stand by. We've got to tell our friends about the Buccetti Mountains. I've got the photographs you sent me. We're going to show people alien technologies. We're going to show you what's been found inside the Buccetti Mountains. It's pretty staggering stuff. People, if you thought that, well, put it this way, you've never seen anything like it. Okay, real hard military intelligence truth and disclosure is going to hit soon. And the Buccetti Mountains in Bucharest. Oh, and you can pick up the phone to Delta Force and ask them, because they know all about it since 2003, 2004, because the Americans swept in the minute the good Romanian military brass had gone in and discovered this unbelievable alien presence, technology, presence, underground, vast pyramids, 1/4 kilometer high, in cave systems themselves 1 kilometer high inside the mountains. We've got photographs to show you later in a few minutes' time, but I've got to bring my next guest on. So stand by, Scotty Sachs, stand by, Bruno, and SG Anon. Are you with me, sir?
I am. Good to be here.
Very, very happy to make your digital acquaintance, and thank you for joining us today. Very happy New Year to you.
Likewise, Sacha. Thank you.
Bravo. Let me just start by saying, friends, turning to the audience, many of you will be familiar with SG. He took the truth and freedom community by storm when he appeared seemingly out of nowhere in this past fall with high-level intelligence that no one had expressed to quite the same level of detail. So who is he? That becomes the question. Well, I can tell you that SG Anon is a father and a husband, a fully paid up human being, which is the critical element. He's a We the People patriot and a student of the Great Awakening. His deep dive approach to dark web research, coupled with his knowledge of military code, languages, and cryptic analysis, helps shed light on who the deep state cabal is, what is really going on in the world, and where we as humankind may be headed. So my first question for you, SG, is in your highly publicized interviews, you've shared intelligence about the mission that most people have not heard. Can you give our audience a quick overview of your background and where you get your information?
Of course. I awoke about 12 years ago in college when I discovered that humanity was being forced into cannibalism against our will and without our knowledge. That set me off on a spiritual journey, if you will, that culminated in my going through the process to join up with the United States Armed Forces. And I made some, very good friends and developed some mentors throughout that journey that stayed with me my entire life. One of those gentlemen, a few years my senior, him and I got very close back in those times. We drifted apart over the last decade, but reconnected over the issue known as Q and the content that the Q drops brought into the world in the public space. These were not unknown topics to a great many people. Just a great many people were simply incapable or unwilling or frightful in sharing them, and with good reason over the years as well. So fast forward throughout that process, the gentleman who was my mentor went on to have a prestigious career in the armed forces of the United States. He did some wonderful work. I know a little bit about some of it, but very little about most of it. And he maintains sort of military connections of his own, is what he tells me. Outside of that, and that particular avenue probably only accounts for about 15% of the information that I put out. Most of what I find is simply deep dive research that you can find on the deep web in areas that are restricted by big tech, the censorship matrix that we all live in. And you can find some really startling truths. You can find some incredible things even right now about NATO forces in Ukraine and NATO forces in Eastern Europe. Some remarkable things about the deception with the nature of our Earth and the nature of our reality. When I came on this particular broadcast, you were talking, Sacha, about the ability to manifest reality into the physical world. That is a major core component of what, I would conjecture one of four major core components that are the reason for the Great Awakening. We are creative beings. Yeah. Our core nature has been hidden from us. And so over the years, I've been a deep dive researcher. I have some exposure to cryptographic analysis. I have some exposure to code breaking, things of that nature. And so, when we had this election of 2020 go off, supposedly in 2020, and then the installation of the Manchurian known as Joe Biden, who is actually an actor, at that point, it became very clear that we are dealing with a coordinated, high-level, worldwide military operation. And it married perfectly with the concept of Q being the public relations arm to disseminate military intelligence that had been acquired through spying into the public space, could not be legally introduced in court, but could be brought into the public domain, sort of to let people know what has been happening and what would occur. Right. And so that's a little bit of a background for me.
Very good. Thanks very much indeed. Let's say a quick hi to Scott, Scott McKay, who I think might be joining us. Scott, can you hear us okay? You'll need to unmute, brother. I got you. Can't unmute your guest. You'll have to do it yourself.
Got it. Okay, we're good.
Okay, good to see you, Scott. A new earth stick to you for not unmuting, but happy to see your face.
It's always good to see you, buddy. I was ready for you. I turned my camera. Things disappeared. Sorry. Got me again.
Well, we've got your a friend SG, and on very happy to have him on the show today. So I was asking him a couple of questions. But whilst we've got you on your hot rod, is there anything that you particularly want to ask him on New Year's Day, 2023?
Yeah, it's the most pressing question. Are you feel good, Lewski, SG? We have an inside joke. We have an inside joke on that. I'm like, I wasn't even going to insult you with a joke, but I thought it would get a laugh out of you anyways.
I will remain SG for 2023 as I have always been.
Very good. That's good to hear. Scott, where are you exactly?
We're downtown Dallas right now. Home, actually, not quite home, but I'm pulled off the side of this road here to hang out with you for a minute.
Well, thank you. Do that. Let me just take 2 minutes of your time to get a Patriot Street Fighter update on where you're at the start of 2023, and then if we lose you, it's not gonna crush the spirit too much. But we need to hear from you right now.
Yeah, I've taken a month off of December. It's the first time in 3 years I've rolled back the throttle since January of 2020. It's been a nice, let's say, soul gathering event for me to not have to consistently broadcast. I needed a lot of rest at being on the road so much. My health was kind of starting to really go downhill in the wrong direction, but I feel pretty good. It's been a nice break. I'd like to extend it a little further, but I don't think I can. Maybe another week, all through this week. I think I'm just going to stay offline. I threw a few pieces out here and there, things I think need to be addressed. But I'm excited about what's coming up in 2023. I got to tell you, I was listening to you talk about Romania. Somebody asked me last night if there was a possibility I would speak at the Conscious Life Expo coming up in Los Angeles. Don't know if they'll actually invite me to do that, but the fact of the matter, in fact, I heard that too. So I was at one two years ago, I think, in 2021. I'll say this: you talked about Romania, what's going on there. My contacts had told me a while back, with a lot of the interest in Ukraine outside of shutting down the criminal empire, the murder machine they've got, also has to do with some two of the arcs that they're obviously now they've identified. They're trying to keep from falling into wrong hands. I know Putin secured one in northern Russia that I was told. And hearing you talk about what's in Bucharest, or what the Romanian generals told you about, is pretty exciting, because it's about time we start to weave the fabric for the people that there is a greater reach into humanity than what they can understand or even imagine. I know SG lately has talked about the firmament, what's in Australia, which is different than anything I've heard in terms of what it looks like there. So I think it's pretty exciting this year. I think people are going to be ready to start hearing some of the things to help them understand that humanity is playing we're not even playing minor league baseball. We're probably in Pee Wee League at this point right now for where we should be in terms of exercising our true potential and understanding where a lot of that comes from. So very cool information you had out there, and looking forward to hearing the depths of what they're telling you, the generals over there are telling you, because really it's time. People are getting restless and they want real good information and want more information. I say we give them the Big Albert baseball bat with this kind of information and see what they can do with it.
Very good. Very good. Thank you, Scott. SG, I wanted to ask you, how do you see the mission to take the world back from the cabal at this time? We know that you believe the military is and has been in control, and you've got intimate knowledge of it. But is it all about military white hats, or what is the counterpoint to military white hats? It's got to do with human consensus, ideation, imagining, and us awakening from within in the dream spell. Speak momentarily to the importance of that.
Absolutely. The military operation, people have kind of given it a misnomer about saying white hats are in control. When you're in control of the battlefield, that does not mean you're in control of the war. It just means you're controlling the initiative from this point forward. You're encouraging the direction of the game. You're the one formulating the plans that then the other side must respond to, rather than playing the reactionary baseball. That's where we've been ever since Donald Trump took office, and we accelerated that with the installation of the Manchurian Joe Biden. That was a necessary step to take to draw out this mainstream cabal, this deep state cabal all throughout the United States, and certainly to begin a process to collapse their system and cause such chaos while protecting the legacies of true patriots out there. I think going into 2023, we are approaching the final moves of this game. My anticipation is that as we go through 2023, we are going to see desperation moves that we've not seen in many decades. We've just had an article published in the Daily Mail discussing a new space race. I fully expect the narrative to turn to an arms race with China very soon with that, where we're sort of being given the playbook over and over again. This time, however, the distractions that they've used on humanity are not going to work. They're not effective. We see them. The emperor has no clothes. It doesn't matter how loud he shouts. And so understanding that is sort of what drives us into the point of reckoning with all of this. They're going to have to play those extremely desperate cards, and upon those cards being played, I believe that's the justification for worldwide military lockdown. And I anticipate something along those lines to occur, which will accelerate us through this COVID tribunals and into a new era. Now, we may have cleanup operations that may go another 2 years.
Right. Well, so talking about Joseph Biden being what he appears to be, which is a not very talented actor, it has to be said. But if that's the case, then does that diminish the veracity of the Hunter Biden story and the laptop and all of that? Are we to assume that that's all part of an orchestration as well?
You know, that's an interesting question. How many of them are really actors? How many of them are still the real individuals that have been allowed to take part and to play their roles out in this particular movie? That's a good question. I think we're going to learn that in time. I don't believe that it diminishes the veracity, because the veracity is really found in the public understanding not only that there is corruption, but that the extent of the corruption is so despicable and depraved that it's sort of beyond human comprehension in a manner of speaking. Understanding that forces the Matrix MK Ultra programming out of the brain. It forces the person to begin asking, what in the world is going on? How did this happen? How could this happen? What is happening? And when you arrive at that point consciously and you're having a genuine moment of questioning, the fear programming has no control over you. And that's where we're trying to drive the masses. And that's why we've been on this journey. We need humanity as a whole to come together. We don't have to all agree on the idiosyncratic portions of this, but we need to understand that we've been duped, that we've been lied to, that we were all subjected to a very realistic genocidal agenda, and that there needs to be some amount of justice and reckoning for that, and there needs to be a cleansing of our society around the world. And I think we're starting to see that bleed through even in the American center left.
Right. Very good. God knows if we left these Fabianists to their own choosing, they'd leave us in a world with cyborgs driving around, you know, in Dallas on fucking Harley Davidson. Oh, speaking of which, we have a... What are your reflections on what SG's just said, Scott?
Well, I'd like to zero in on the fact that, you know, SG talked about this MK Ultra programming, and I think one of the things people really need to understand here is that you don't have to be tied to a chair in a dungeon or a basement, having drill bits driven into your thighs or red hot poker stuck into your ear, tortured, sodomized, to be MK Ultra. People, I think, are going to learn. They're going to need to understand it, and they're eventually going to learn. MK Ultra programming is everything that has become your reality. Every TV show, every movie, the idiot box, the radio, all media, all entertainment, all advertising, to create this view of what life should be or is. And take Hollywood, everything about the projection of publicists. Somebody said that we're glad to hear that I have a publicist. I don't have a publicist, I have a book strategist. I wouldn't hire a paid liar to lie to the world about my life. I'll tell the world directly, here's what my life is about, not have a paid bullshit artist to try to fabricate an image of an actor or me or anybody else. All of our lives, we've had basically a public media strategist, which is the clowns in America and their programming and their technology, to bring this right to us in our living rooms, from our car radio, from music, from any entertainment media. It's all MK Ultra programming, from the Disney theme parks. All of it is all MK Ultra programming. And when people come to realize that you don't have to be in a basement, you don't have to be abducted, you don't have to be tortured to be programmed by MK Ultra, then they're going to have at least the capacity to say, Holy Mary, Mother of God, nothing about anything I've ever believed or anything I've ever been taught is real. Like, what is the truth? What's the reality? So I think once we come to the grips with that, come to the conclusion that we have all been MK Ultra'd, every one of us, right. Now we can back up and say, what the hell, where do we go from here? Show me the truth. And,
right.
And maybe we'll get somewhere with the people in general on a faster scale.
Very good. Well, I've been saying the last week I dropped a rather frustrated media drop, which went somewhat viral, talking about human trafficking, just in advance of this Andrew Tate debacle, which came out. And I was just trying to remind people that if you really want to talk about human trafficking, just go and find the nearest mirror and look into it. You're being trafficked. If you have a passport, if you have a registration certificate, a birth certificate, a fucking marriage certificate, any kind of certificate or registration, you are being trafficked by definition. We are all human trafficked, and the traffickers are doing the trafficking. So when they start to create, manufacture these stories about the Andrew Tates of this world, trafficking, doing human trafficking because he's got a bunch of women working in a chat room in Romania, we've got to just get a perspective, a real perspective on who's who and who's controlling what. I want to ask one final question of SG here, which is, what in your view, and Scott, I also want to hear from you on this before we lose you, is what, SG, do you believe we're going to be seeing in the next 3 years? I mean, I think the next 3 years is going to be seminal. It was certainly between now and 2030. We're going to see such a sea change of this planet, the likes of which we could never have imagined as youngsters. But what do you think is going to take place? What are the signature changes we're going to witness in the next 3 years?
Seminal is a very good word for it. I think that we are going to see the largest pivot mankind will ever see in the next 3 to 5 years. We had a harbinger in December of 2020. It was actually the December 21st of 2020, the Great Conjunction.
Correct. That's right.
We're evolving.
Yeah.
As a species, we are, and a lot of my listeners don't like the term ascending because it is more of a provocative term in some respects, but we are rediscovering the innate human capabilities that all of us have, all of us possess, that every single one of us, by virtue of being sustained by infinite source and love and being sustained by that creator, is coming back out. We're relearning who we are. That is the pivot, in my estimation. All of the other, everything that we see happening, transpiring right now in the world is a byproduct of what's really going on inside every one of us right now.
Beautiful.
Humanity is awakening all at the same time to a number of things: the corruption, the depravity of evil, all of that, the possibility of certain evil networks being a thing. But we are also awakening to understanding how we work, understanding how frequencies work, understanding that we are at our core resonant beings in movement. We're not solid. I mean, your skin is not solid state. You're an atomic being. And understanding that we can control and direct a large amount of that spiritual body and power, that innate power that we have through our connection to source energy, our connection to God, our connection to the Almighty that creates all things. And we can bring forth in limited fashion those same sorts of capabilities. Jesus the Christ said, "Greater things than these will you do," pointing to the apostles and letting them know that you will discover in your walk with me the same things that I have discovered. Beautiful. And so, as we go through these next 3 to 5 years, I think that we're all sort of on the Christ walk. I think that we're all going to understand who we are, and I think that the fall of evil is simply a byproduct of relearning our true identity as mankind.
Fantastic. Absolutely bang on. Thank you for that. Couldn't have asked for a better wind up than that. Scott, your thoughts?
Thanks for unmuting that mic, brother. I think the two things that I see changing, number one is what I experienced myself in the last, I don't know how many years, 10 years, but specifically in the last 3 to 4, is that in this energetic shift that's taken place, affecting human DNA, affecting psychology, emotions, I think there are going to be guys or maybe gals too, who really are immune to any type of emotional movement towards humanity, on the good side. Look, I sat in Avatar, the second Avatar, this couple days ago, and to sit in that movie and I didn't even hold back tears in that movie. The thing that inspires me to no end is this immense love that we beings have for each other. It's been obviously sequestered from us, or it's been stamped out. The light's been stamped out greatly in this planet. But the impact that movie has on me, watching TV shows, It could be hell. It could be Yellowstone. Watching, this rough cowboy culture, the relationship between these people on screen in a family setting has so much power to shift me that I can't get through any of these things in my own home watching without crying outright or tears streaming down my face. It's having this magnanimous impact on me at the soul level. Now, most guys or people would look at me and say, come on, you're Patriot Street Fighter, for Christ's sakes. Don't give me that milquetoast pussy bullshit. And here's the thing. With me, I let that love emanate from me. That's the most amazing thing. And this is not just affecting me like this in this universe, in this planet. It's happening to other people. They may not say it, but it happens to other people too. That, to me, is what I think is going to accelerate in the coming couple of years. And the second thing is, I think we're going to unhook ourselves from this dogmatic, Christian viewpoint of who Christ was, his life. I've been talking about this from these stages for 18 months, as SG said. Like, look, folks, Christianity is an action plan. If you're waiting for Christ to drop his feet on the planet and save us from the shit show we created and say, hey, yeah, you guys did a great job here, I'm going to bring you all up to heaven and turn you clowns loose and see what you do there. That's going by the wayside. And I said this from some of the biggest church stages in the country virtually every month. And I think the fact that I still have survived that, and General Flynn hasn't thrown me off that, or Clay Clark or whoever, is because they understand what I'm saying, number one. Number two, they can't get away with saying it, nor can the pastor of the churches. I butter him up. I always say, look, folks, how many people are in this church? Come to this church. And then when they raise their hand, I'm like, you know what? Your pastor's a badass. And they start laughing. I'm like, anybody that lets Patriot Street Fighter come through the doors of their church has to be a badass. And I've even said, look, his balls are bigger than church bells. You can hear them banging together when a guy walks. The place goes crazy. The pastor's head's back like he's horrified. But when he hears this ovation, he's like, yeah, you can see it in his eyes. I'm a badass. We have got to get away from the construct of this dogma of Christ's life and talk about the reality of it. As you taught me, Sacha, the Christ consciousness is what is taking action here in Rising. So I think we're going to be able to start unhitching people from that dogma, that Luciferian structure of Christ's life, religion itself, what it means, and start getting down to the business of talking about the light body, the light being, the ascension process, which I don't even back away from. People come at me. It's like, okay, we'll arm wrestle right here, no problem. But I think those are the changes that are coming. It's going to be a tough run. It's going to be a tough road for many. Economically, other things are going to happen. But when I see these things coming and making it tough even for me, I'm going to be excited, because that is the turning point that is indicating that we are going to the new earth that you're trying to build.
Beautiful. Thank you, Scott. Well, I have to say that if you do start doing a Jordan Peterson and start bursting into tears every time you deliver one of your Patriot Street Fighter, I will personally parachute in and slap you and man you up.
Oh, it's coming, sweetheart. It's coming.
God bless you, Scott. Thank you, brother. And I really hope to see you in California in February. It'd be really good news. Yeah.
Do my best. I'll do my best either. Love you, brother. You guys have a great day. SG, as always.
Indeed. SG, thanks so much for joining us, brother, as well. Delightful meeting you.
As always, gentlemen, a delight. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, friends, let me bring Bruno back in and we can continue. Joanne, I've sent you messages. I'm not sure you're reading them, but I need to know that Dr. Rima is in the green room, and she's not. So if you could kindly get her on the phone, please, and get her into the green room. Thank you. Bruno, let's continue quickly on our little Bucecci Mountains. I've got some images here, friends. Check these out.
But
Boom, 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 boom. Yes, Bruno, you want to say something?
I want to say that you remember when we first met, we talked about this topic, and we want to create something to release the truth. So just is coming to us without do any effort. Yeah, you know, the information is just coming. You know,
that's right. That's right. No, we took a decision. We took a decision. We were driving. We were driving with the general, and we were going past the Bucecci Mountains, and then we spoke about that's one of the key things that needs to happen. Was it 2003 or 2004 when? When
2003.
2003. So they discovered. I think it was Romanian military guys, right? Discovered the alien.
No. It was American military.
Well, hang on.
With the satellite, they see.
Oh, so it was with satellite that they
saw.
And then they sent Delta in, or whoever they sent in.
Yeah, they sent a lot of people. They froze everything in Romania. bank accounts. They tell to the government, to the president that time, you should not send this information to anyone on the world. We will shut down all the IMF accounts, money, and everything. So it was a kind of big scandal about that. And then after a Mason come to discuss with some people from the government to say the humanity is not prepared for this information, do not release, they block everything. But now you see, is the energy of the truth and the light will take out all the truth, everything. And you have a beautiful message. I send it to you, a very nice one. You can read to the audience.
Well, actually, Bruno, I'm sorry to do this to you and to the audience, but Dr. Rima has just come into the green room. I've got to bring her in, so we'll have to revert to the story. I know it's getting late for you in Bucharest. Just stand by. Thank you, Bruno. Friends, Dr. Rima Laibow is one of the more extraordinary people you're likely to meet. And I'm very honored to have spent a few hours speaking with her in the past on a number of interviews. She believes passionately in the rights of people to choose their own health, and she graduated from the Albert Einstein College of Medicine in 1970 and believes in using nutrients and other natural options to find and define and treat all problems underlying degenerative chronic disease and poor aging, while supporting the immune and other crucial systems. She's one of the signature figures in natural health and has been a leading pioneer in it. She's the founding and past president of the Neurotherapy Certification Board, which she helped establish in order to strengthen and develop the field of neurofeedback and bring it into widespread use as a powerful non-toxic tool for modern medicine. You ask, why is that important? I can tell you why. Because we're under the gravest systemic attack against the human genome in the history of this world, certainly since the seeding of humanity. And this is the only subject that's going to make any sense to any of us in the 2 or 3 years ahead, as we start to see systemic genetic collapse of the human family, courtesy of your local friendly government and public health administrators. She is also, Dr. Rima, the widow, it has to be said, of one of the most extraordinary men in modern history. I never speak with or about Dr. Rima without first saluting Bert, because this is a man I never met, but I was in love with 20 years ago. Excuse the geese outside. I'm assuming that they're joining me in saluting Bert. Albert Bert Newton Stubblebine III. He was born on February the 6th of 1930, and he passed in 2017, which I do not forgive him for, because we had not quite dispensed with this genius. But he was a United States Army Major General whose active duty and career spanned 32 years. He began as an armor officer, later transferred to the intelligence, and he's credited with redesigning the U.S. Army intelligence architecture during his time as commanding general of the U.S. Army Intelligence and Security Command. That places him at the very top of the pyramid at that time, from 1981 to 1984, after which he retired from active service and then came out, it has to be said, as an absolute warrior for truth and disclosure and killing all the sacred cows. An absolute legend and a hero, and he certainly chose a legend and a hero when he chose to marry Rima Laibow. Dr. Rima, so happy to see you.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for celebrating Bert, who passed because he was murdered. Let us be clear about that. There he is, the most beautiful human I ever knew, and still know. He is still very active and communicates with me and others with things that provide documentable data, which I'm very fond of, because he calls me his hard-headed mystic. So thank you for including me. And by the way, the book of his first 2 years of transmissions is available as an ebook. It's called The General Speaks: Intimate Conversations with the Dead. And when he said that's what he wanted his book titled, I said, that is a hell of a title, darling.
Wow, that's fantastic. Rima, I can't wait to read that. Wonderful stuff.
I will send it to you. I'll send it to you by Skype.
Thank you kindly.
But I would like to deflect your kind definition or description of my work from the body individual your body, my body, anybody else's body, to the body politic. Because unless we attend to the body politic, unless we take this ascension that you've been talking about and this awareness and turn it into very particular kinds of real world action, as important as the ascension may be, we're going to be well informed on the way to the gas chambers. And that's not what we want.
No.
Because these monsters that you describe, and you can call them demonic, you can call them globalists, you can call them the descendants of the Fabian socialists of the late 19th and early 20th century, like Aldous Huxley, who wrote Brave New World as a roadmap for what he wanted to see. And I invite everyone to go to aldoushuxley.com and for free read the first 3 chapters of Brave New World, because you will see our world.
Right.
This has been in the planning for a long time.
Right.
This illness has been incubating. They were just waiting for the technology to make us not human.
Indeed.
To kill most of us and to enslave the remnant, very explicitly. So the question is, once you know the cause of an illness, this is how I practice medicine. Once I know the cause of an illness, I don't treat the symptoms. I don't deal with the lack of parental rights, with the destruction of valid gender identity, with the canceling of biology as a reality. I don't deal with the coming digital currency and so on and so on. I look for the underlying cause, and I go as much like an arrow as I can directly into that. So what's the cause in my estimation? And what are the specific actions that I want you to take, Sacha, and that I want every single person within reach of your voice, your electronic footprint, your videos, mine, everyone else's? What are they? I'm so glad you asked. I was planning on telling you. The cause that we have to deal with right now is this demented idea that it's okay for a small group of people, or semi-people, or whatever they are, a small group of controllers or would-be controllers, to decide who lives and who dies. And mostly everybody dies except for a small group of people who will be subsumed into a kind of genetic slavery and environmental slavery and physical slavery. And they will be confined to transit villages on 1% of the world's Earth surface, the world's landmass, and they will be subject to Agenda 2030. Used to be Agenda 2000, then it was Agenda 21, now it's then it was Agenda 2030. How did it get to be Agenda 2030? The WEF, a private economic organization, and the multinational organization called the United Nations signed an agreement, which is illegal, but never mind about that. They signed an agreement and they decided to accelerate the entire enslavement and destruction of humanity to Agenda 2030. Now, what that means is that the juggernaut coming across the rise towards us, the Death Star, if you will, is the WHO. And behind it is the control room for the WHO, which is the United Nations. And then behind that is the headquarters of the Imperium, if you will, the people who make the decisions to have these things happen. We can't reach them yet. And then there are the bankers, the banksters, and so on. So what we have to do is get each and every country that we can on this planet out of the United Nations and out of the World Health, or actually it better named the World Holocaust Organization.
Yeah.
The way we do that is very simple. I've done a white paper which is available on our websites, and I suggest everybody who's interested in what I'm saying, and or who thinks I'm crazy and wants to prove me wrong, please, I suggest that they go to Prevent Genocide 2030, preventgenocide2030.org. There's a great deal of information there, a great deal of documentation from the other side, from the crazy bastards who have decided that they know who to dispatch and how to dispatch us through starvation and manipulation of various kinds, and these kill shots that have been called vaccines, which of course are not. So we have to.
Rima, let me just ask you, you're expressly concerned right now about the most recent G20 declaration that was signed.
Most expressly.
Right. So tell us specifically what is in there and why you believe the agenda is going forward premised on what they've just signatured in Bali.
In Bali, the 20 leaders of the government, supported by the billionaires and the WEF monsters, came together and they created, well, of course they didn't create, they signed a declaration which says, as the Indonesian Minister of Health put it very articulately, we are going to use all of our power to get amendments through, adopted into the international health regulations. Those amendments, which are analyzed very carefully on preventgenocide2030.org, by the way, those amendments destroy every government on the planet at the whim, the unquestionable whim of the Director General of the World Health Organization, who in this case happens to be Tedros, but somebody else will sit in his chair. Previous, it was Margaret Chan, who simply eliminated any definition of pandemic. A pandemic is anything they say it is, like monkeypox, right? So if the Director General, under these amendments, 13 of which were submitted by the Biden administration, if the Director General, thank you, what a nice comment, thank you. If the Director General of the World Holocaust Organization says there is a public health interest of international concern, a public health event of international concern, which should be pronounced fake. If there is a fake, and I said there is, and that defines it as such, then I, as the Director General or the Dictator General of the World Holocaust Organization, now can dissolve the sovereignty of each and every country of interest and control the physical state and medical decisions of each and every person. It is a global medical tyranny. Now, if we allow this to happen, and once these amendments are adopted at the World Health Assembly, which the World Holocaust Organization runs, it will happen this May. And this has all been going on through secret negotiations, which have been secret even from the countries, mind you. Once this happens, it will be, God help us, legally binding for any member nation. Consequently, the only safety for you as a sovereign, autonomous human being, and for your country as a sovereign, autonomous, wouldn't it be nice, as a sovereign, autonomous country, the only possibility that you have is to get your country out of the United Nations. Now, how do you do that? You create a tsunami of public demand. Now, how does a country get out of the United Nations? You were just about to ask that, Sacha. I saw it on the ticker tape window on your forehead. How does a country get out of the World Health Organization or the United Nations? The head of state, the person who is the crowned or the elected or the appointed head of state, writes a letter, just writes a letter and says, we're not part of your club anymore. We know that Indonesia did this and Sukarno was then replaced and they went back in, but it takes just a letter. Now that's easy. Getting the letter to be written is hard. That's where the massive political pressure has to occur. And I mean millions upon millions of people using the tool that we have set up at preventgenocide2030.org or any other tool that you choose to use. It doesn't matter, but you must create a tsunami not only of awareness, we have plenty of data. We have an arising, awakening awareness. That's lovely. But if they slaughter you now that you have your arising, awakening awareness, that's really not so useful. So we have to take real world actions and create real world political pressure. Our political leaders are completely sold out. They are useless. They are worthless. They are disgusting. They are despicable. They will face whatever consequence they face at a soul level. But meanwhile, they're controlling our lives. So
Indeed.
we have to lean on them so hard that they have no choice. And now, can that be done? Can little old we lean on these great, powerful monsters this way? Oh, yeah. And we've done it. When millions of people say the three most important words that a free person can say, don't you dare, and they say it consistently,
You're very
and they
polite.
say it in a very effective way, then what happens is these persons step back every single time. But it's up to us, to you, to me, to our friends, to our neighbors, and forget about the ones who are caught in the hypnosis. They'll come along when the social pressure changes. They always do. Forget about them. When we, the aware ones, take action, we, the aware ones, shape events.
Well, I think that's beautiful. And so there you go, folks. Rima's 3 words are don't you dare.
You need the gesture. Don't
Yeah,
you
well,
dare,
mine would be
particularly because of the middle one.
indeed. Well, excuse the geese here, please.
I love the geese.
I'm in the Yucatan. They're right outside my window, and they've been waiting all day for the broadcast, and I thought they'd come into the garden. Thank you for that, Rima. You know, the problem is with the United Nations, and as you rightly say, it is actually as simple as the head of state or the chief officer of a company withdrawing from a compact and saying, no, not interested, thanks very much. The problem, speaking as a former director general in the IGO sector of the United Nations, the problem is that they've all intertwined. The United Nations World Trade Organization, the
Yes.
World Food Program, the IMF, the BIS, the World Bank,
Yes.
are all. So what happens is if a country tries to withdraw from, let's say, the World Health Organization treaty, they've got jackals come in the next day and say, that's it, your loans are being withdrawn, we're going to tank your economy. So it really is a hybrid of such monumental evil proportion. That was the agenda, of course, the objective of the United Nations when it was really set up to become that globalist enterprise. So people like you and I know that. The average person doesn't know that. And curiously enough, the average United Nations field worker has no idea.
No idea.
Either. This is the horrifying thing. People who are even at the level of director general in the United Nations don't themselves know about the globalist hand. So I learned that myself firsthand. But it is a calamity. And how does one, from that standpoint, really engage? Well, I've maintained that we don't need government altogether. We don't need politics altogether. We don't need economics altogether. We never needed to be orchestrated in that way. And the one thing, the signature thing that upholds and maintains and sustains the evil of government is personal income taxes, which I don't believe people should pay. I never thought people should. That's not being a good citizen. That's being a mug. But business taxes, go for it. Pay your business taxes. That's correct and proper, always was. But personal income tax is a travesty. And that is the thing that empowers the war machine and the war economy, the blood economy. It's personal income taxes. And that's the sacrifice of innocence and the harvest of humanity loop. Would you agree more or less with what I'm saying?
I agree with that, but I don't think that a number of people holding back their personal income taxes is going to solve the problem. I think at this point, you're right. The intertwinement is so complete that you notice I don't say just get out of the WHO. I say get out of the WHO and the United Nations. And by the way, in 1969, there was a convention and a treaty on treaties was signed, the Vienna Treaty on Treaties. The United States did not sign that treaty, but we follow the diktat of that treaty on treaties. And it says if the other side changes some factor from when things that's now different from when you signed the treaty, you can just say, nope, not in the treaty anymore. That's how countries do it. The consequences, as you say, are multifarious and multifactorial and very, 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 very complicated. So what will have to happen is that countries that withdraw from the United Nations, UNESCO, all of the UN affiliated organizations, and the World Health Organization specifically, because that is so particularly toxic, evil, and well organized, brilliantly done.
Yeah.
The countries that do that will find themselves looking for a non-centralized but co-equal collaboration partnership in order to trade, in order to survive interactively. And I want to say the good people of the world, the doctors and the economists and the political scientists and the biostatisticians and so on who get it, are coming together in various nodes around the world, and they're saying, we need a central voice. We need one message. We need to tell people how they should awaken and what they should do. And the answer is no. We need multiple collaborative voices, lots of experimentation, no centralized formatting to tell us what we believe, because inevitably when we become centralized, we want the power because we know we're good. We're not going to do anything for evil. We're only going to do it for good. So we'll just take over a little more for good and take over a little more for more good. And eventually we become them whom we have ousted, and the revolution eats its young and repeats its mistakes. Nope. We need decentralized, collaborative experimentation to find our way out of this monstrous, deadly situation, which is designed specifically to kill, dehumanize, and enslave. Indeed. And if we don't act now, I mean, it's the new year. Happy New Year. If we don't act now, the new year will be our last as sovereign humans.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Rima. Well, someone's asking here, what was the name of the website again? Please, well, friends, look here at my name. I put my name, changed my name to the website. So it's preventgenocide2030.org. Scott, we're running out of time, but I know you more than likely are burning with a question for Dr. Rima. So please have the floor.
Yes, Dr. Rima, thank you for directing so much fresh air to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, where I am sitting right now. Amazing to listen to you. We talk about action, taking action so as to cut off this monster, to cut the head of the monster. What action can our audience take? What is it specifically they can do?
This is your freedom mouse. This is what you ride out of WHO and the United Nations. Believe it or not, we have a tool set up there. If you go to preventgenocide2030.org, you will see Act Now. Now, you can do two things. One, you can take the actions there if you're in the United States and Canada. And when you take the action in Canada, your one click that says send with your name and your email goes to every member of parliament and all the relevant poobahs. Now, that means that 100 people send 435 emails each. 1,000 people send 435 each. 10,000 people. There is no limit. And we have in the past literally stopped the United States government from a mandatory vaccine program in 2009. We stopped the Chilean government from acceding to the UPOV 91 treaty. Sacha, you know what that is. Yeah. You know how deadly that is. We stopped them by people riding their freedom mouse and saying in unison, don't you dare. But if you don't like our actions, there's a tool there that says propose a new action. You tell us, and it's difficult, so just contact me. I'll give you my email. Contact me. We'll walk you through it. You propose the action and you put it out to your circle of influence. I don't need to control it. I'll give you the tool. It's a very sophisticated tool in the United States. It sorts it out and sends it specifically to the people that are supposedly your servant governors, the people that you've elected. In other countries, it's structured differently. We'll help you. But if we don't do this, if we don't ride the damn freedom mouse, we're going to ride the conveyor belt to the gas chambers.
Very good. Dr. Rima Laibow, as ever, unbelievable. What a force of nature. Love you desperately. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right. God bless you. Wow. Scotty, what say you? I mean, every time I speak to Rima, she's just a walking, talking encyclopedia. Unbelievable force. And I rather suspect that she's just started her game because like I said, she's always armed with the most extraordinary amounts of information. She's always at the front line of mobilizing people, millions of people around the world. She just is ceaseless. What an Achilles heel for the World Health Organization is Dr. Rima Laibow. Scotty, I'm going to bring Bruno back in. We've got to think about winding down. I've got Sean Stone's interview that I did a little earlier, and I'm going to be dropping that at the end of this. And folks, I urge you to watch it. He has a lot to say. It was a very interesting talk with Sean. I'll be with him in California in February and look forward to doing some more media stuff with him when we're both together. But for now, let me just bring Bruno's with us. Scotty's there. Put Bruno in the middle because he's, maybe come a little bit closer to your screen because you look like a mini me there. Yeah, try and make yourself. There you go. Thank you. Very good, Bruno. You look lovely. So I'm gonna show some photographs, friends, of some of the alien technologies that were discovered in the Rocky Mountains, and Bruno can speak a little bit to them. What are we looking at there, Bruno?
Well, actually, what it is there, it is the laboratory of the gods of light, where they create the human species, the Aryan race, the light workers, the real souls.
What's the material? What is the material? Do you know?
Well, I think it's a stone or something. It's sculpted in the stone.
So this was the underground alien base, part of what they saw in 2003.
They shut it down, but they still have the military up there.
Well, they've been there ever since.
Yes, and there are things exactly this. I don't know how and who take this picture out.
But apparently this is 1,200 feet high, this ceiling.
Yeah.
So the human being would be like an ant on the ground.
No. It's not so high. It's like maybe 30 meters, 100 meters.
No, there are different sections. I was studying it. There's some very high.
Yes, there are some pyramids.
Very high, from what I understand. That's a 200-meter height pyramid inside one of the mountains in Bucharest.
Yes, and there are 3 tunnels that they are connected with the pyramids of Egypt, Iraq, and Tibet.
So the truth is, these are leaked images.
UFO.
Yeah, these are leaked images, and the truth is, we don't really know what we're looking at.
Well, according to the stories and what they are hiding for, they are definitely found a holographic technology, which they show everything how was created. I mean, how it was created: the Earth, the stars, the constellations, the humans, how races was mixed, the DNA modification and everything. So this is the full story of the human race, the Aryan race, because there was other race created by other gods in the other part of the world where is very much war right now. It always been fighting between the light gods and the dark forces.
Yes.
The evil gods, let's say, religious speaking. But actually, it was a different kind of extraterrestrial races, good ones and bad ones, fighting for the earth and fighting for enslaved humanity. Once they create slaves, and others they create light beings with awareness and consciousness. It's a huge quantum light frequencies delivered to Earth by exposing the truth, and everything it will be in the light. So there is no stone cannot speak. So we will witness to amazing news in the next time, especially this year. You're on mute, Sacha.
If you've been following the Lazarus Initiative, friends, you will remember Professor Florian Kolchiak, who we're working very closely with. And thank you for that beautiful message. I woke up this morning, Bruno, you'd sent a video message. You're with the professor. Send me a beautiful New Year's message. Thank you for that. Professor Florian Kolchiak has discovered the universal genome. And it's an algorithm and mathematical equations, which is allowing the professor using supercomputation to communicate with animals. I wish he could communicate to these fucking geese right now outside here. But we will be able to communicate directly with trees, with clouds, with anything. Now, I mean, the equation has been done. Now we're just really trying to amp up the supercomputation. But the fact of the matter is, we have the mathematics right now within our group in Romania. We have the mathematics now to be able to communicate with trees and clouds. And as you just said, Bruno, with rocks themselves, because they contain consciousness. And so we can bypass speculations and we can just go straight to these artifacts and communicate directly with them once we've got the computation there. How long do you think it's going to take for us to get there?
Well, you know what? I think it's up to each of us how fast we're waking up our spirit in order to be connected with everything what is nature. Because everything what is nature and to our physical reality, it's God. So it's up to us now to be connected with the flow of energy which is delivered to Earth. And you know what? We can receive very, very powerful informations if you are learning to connect with everything. It's a living organism and being.
Very good.
Plants like trees, like, just speak with them, ask them.
Beautiful.
And God, it's the protector of life, the creator of souls.
Indeed. Thank you, Bruno. Scotty, I'm going to be moving on to Sean Stone's final message as our closing piece, but any last thoughts today?
No, Sacha, I mean, Dr. Rima is a tough act to follow, but you did it with these pictures. They're amazing. And it begs the question, if they found this facility in Romania, how many other facilities like this are there in the world?
Well, I can tell you, I'm on a plane in a few days' time heading to the Mediterranean, and I will be in the Middle East a few days later, about a week and a half from now, meeting with a government delegation. Bruno should be with me there as well, actually. I'm not going to name our friends or the country that we're dealing with right now, but put it this way, this country is twice the size of Egypt, is bordering Egypt, and by best accounts has just as remarkable antiquities that have never been seen before or disclosed. And we're being invited, I'm being invited in to make a film about these antiquities as they get disclosed to the world. So we're very excited about what we're going to learn there in that part of North Africa and the Middle East. But for sure, if this is the time of revelation, which it is, And if this is the time of tribulation, which it is, and the great reckoning, which all of us recognize, then we find ourselves right in the middle of it. And we're going to continue to just speak as boldly as we can to the truth of what we see with our eyes, what we touch, what we feel. That's what we have to begin to rely on that. If we want to step away from this AI, transgenderfied, Fabianist, artificial, holonomic reality that's being kind of AI engineered for us, we've got to get back into our human skin. We've got to put the soles of our feet back onto the soil and start to touch things and see things and feel things and connect directly with our own living experience and then speak to that. Because most of us are now being subsumed into a kind of artificial reality where it's virtual. And most of our kids today are only able to live by extension through artificial formats. That's not going to serve humanity moving forward. So we've got to reclaim our stake in being living men and women of the living soil. That's the key piece as far as I'm concerned. Scotty, Sachs, thank you again for co-hosting today. Much appreciated. And Bruno, brother, thank you very much indeed for joining.
I'll see you soon, Sacha.
All right. Okay, friends, that's it. I'm going to now leave you with, thanks to Joanne in the green room there, I'm going to leave you folks and to Dr. Rima Laibow, to SG, and on to Scott McKay, my beloved friend, and to Sean Stone, who's done the piece that I'm about to drop. And I've also forgotten Loy, incredible human being, wonderful meeting with Loy Brunson earlier on. And as I said, we will be tracking that story. It's one that's of supreme importance to all Americans and people of the world, in point of fact. Folks, love you. See you in about 2 weeks' time. Joanne will let you know through social media where the next broadcast takes place from, but I rather suspect it'll be the Middle East. So I will start this piece of media by presenting here. Stand by and bid you adieu. Bye-bye now. You know, it occurred to me, speaking to the Arise audience, that in all the years that I've interviewed Sean variously for Lazarus, for Arise, and for All and Sundry, I've not once bothered to introduce him formally because he's a mate of mine. And I think that for those of you who don't know who he is, mind you, if you don't know who he is, I'm not really talking to you. But Sean is, as most of you know, a filmmaker, media host, author, actor, poet, speaker, and really above all, it has to be said, an iconic truth seeker and spiritual activist. And he began his quest at 10 years of age when his father took him to Tibet, Nepal, and India, in order to illuminate the stark contrast between those worlds and Hollywood. And what a blessing, what a benediction that must have been, where he had been a child actor, of course, in Oliver Stone's films like JFK, The Doors, and Natural Born Killers. It was the first time I met Sean. He was interviewing me on his show, which was, I think, the Buzzsaw. And as a teacher of spiritually oriented advice, feedback, and guidance, Sean offers private consultation sessions. I can't emphasize this enough. You can find all of the information at seanstone.info or Patreon/Sean Stone. Sean, happy to see you, brother.
It's good to see you as well.
So as we depart 2022 and enter into 2023, are we, in your view, departing the 3D Atlantean light matrix finally and entering a higher realm? Or are we possibly playing even further into duality and this Hegelian dialectic, which is being spun for us by an invisible mastery, the same old mastery? What are your true thoughts on this?
You know, the polarization is something that we felt for years now, and if you could see it coming, and was modeled to us, you could say, predictive programming wise, and in the Captain America Civil War, right? And there were a lot of, I remember doing a Buzzsaw interview on this topic of the Civil War back in 16, 17 time period. But it was even, again, it had been coming for, it felt about a decade, since 2012 at least. I really felt this polarization of consciousness, right? And so, as you know, and all of us are experiencing, we grew up in times when, yeah, people were on the left or the right, and you get antagonistic sometimes, and you'd get pissed off some political moves, but for the most part you wouldn't lose friends and family over politics. So we've obviously gone to a place where there's extreme bifurcation in terms of worldviews, right? Which worldview do you want? Do you want the nanny? I break it down to, do you want the nanny state? Do you want basically Big Brother to watch everything you're doing and basically say, well, we're going to monitor everything, tell you your social credit score, but guess what? At the end of it, we'll give you some things. We'll get you some, I don't know, healthcare and some benefits. I don't know, some checks, some benefits. That's what you get, exchange for a nanny state. Or do you want radical freedom, which is basically deciding our forms of government that we want to have? And in the United States, for example, I say breaking it down to the states level of the counties, and okay, you want healthcare, you want government healthcare, great. California, vote it in. You're a state, you got the money. Yeah. Experiment, see what it's like. Why does the whole nation need to do it? Why can't California do it? So it's like going to the level of closer to home, close as possible to self-government, in the sense that every one of us has that consciousness, that ability to self-govern, right? We do it within our homes, within ourselves, within our relationships. So why can't we be more, why can we not step into that power of sovereignty when it comes to, other decisions? And this is, to me, the two paths. So we are seeing polarization. It's inevitable, because sometimes you have to see the poles to recognize that it's one world, right? It's one planet, and we are all still connected. Even when we are most adversarial and antagonistic, there's still a connection point. And that's always what's interested me when I've done my work, whether going to Iran and accepting Islam and basically saying, look, I feel like a peacemaker or something. I'm trying to basically help bridge this misunderstanding between cultures. And thankfully, I was, as you mentioned in my bio, I was able to, since I was a little kid, travel the world, hear different dialects and different languages and meet different ethnicities and races. And it's like, and then you can better help bridge those misunderstandings, which is, I think, where we are. And again, the biggest misunderstandings are closest to home, right there, because they're the deepest rooted with they're emotionally charged, and there's compounded by so many factors of jealousy and the design. Right now the big thing is around in America is about equity and entitlement and privilege, and it's a huge victimhood culture. So I think that these things are being worked out at the emotional level for first and foremost, because really it's like, we know that we may think that we're rational beings, but we know that we're really driven by our emotions. Right. And so if my emotional blueprint is to basically want to be told what to do, and to basically have an authoritarian parent who can basically tell me what to do, so I don't have to make those decisions for myself, right? And that feels good. My emotionally feel safe in that place. Then my rational mind would say, oh, this is justified because I feel safe. Emotionally, I feel safe, so I can justify, right, those authoritarians, as opposed to emotionally, I prefer to be free and not constrained and respected. So, my rational mind is not going to be okay with those authoritarian personalities.
But you're describing the backdrop of emotionality or psycho-emotionality, which does describe absolutely the principal human condition, and of course it is that backdrop against which the Babylonian priesthood or the comptrollers or the archonic forces come in and know full well that in order to manifest a certain kind of reality, they need to play with icons and symbols and totems. And this is where mainstream media and of course Hollywood comes in, and being able to galvanize the attention of witless human beings, that plasma field, into the realm of ideation, so that the witless human beings are the ones actually manifesting the reality that the archonic elements are using totems and symbols to drive. So that's what we're talking about. Do you think we're going further into that iconoclasticism 2.0, or indeed we're breaking free from it?
Well, iconoclasm would be smashing it, wouldn't it? Right? Sure. The iconoclasts were the ones smashing the icons, right? Sure. So are we moving into iconoclasm? And I believe we are. I think there's evidence for it. I mean, what you said is very important about how sorcerers and magicians understand that you can create you can create an energy, or a certain perspective, and let the human imagination and energy and will bring it into effect, right? So if you cast something on a wall and it may create fear, my fear may manifest a demon, right? Or a negative situation, right? Unless I get mastery of myself, which is really why I don't blame. I don't blame the dark side. You see, I've come to that place of seeing it from a holistic perspective, a higher perspective, which is, yes, dark is necessary, because ultimately it's about each of us taking responsibility to say, okay, I can transcend this fear. I can transmute this fear. I can work through it. And, obviously we're all at different stages of doing that. But I think we're becoming more aware of what's being done to us. That's the point, that we are being aware when things like Balenciaga comes out, with their sort of pedophilic S&M symbolism. People are immediately saying, hey, we see that, the FTX stuff with Ukrainian money laundering for the Democratic Party, right? It's like, hey, we see that. The Hunter Biden laptop, hey, we see it. So even if it doesn't get corrected, because the system, as you mentioned, is archonic, and it's basically these structures that are Babylonian maritime legal structures that have been in place for thousands of years, and corporations that are basically they're basically archonic. They are archons in a sense, rulers. They are these things that in many ways are entrenched, but I think that their energy is dwindling because people are seeing through the illusion. So as we see through it, we don't give it the same intention, the same energy to fuel it. So even if they aren't arrested, this is where it's really interesting, because people are so pissed off, like, where are the arrests? And it's like, even if you never get there, even if you aren't you recognizing the illusion, like the wizard has no power, right? He's just got this big megaphone, and he's this little shrimp dick, like a Bill Gates type, right? If you recognize it, you're already shifting the reality. You're already you're disempowering him by calling it out. You see, you don't have, whether he's arrested or not, he's going to have his karmic consequence. Everyone does, but the point is that he can't have the power over you, because now you're starting to talk about it and see it.
So with that in mind, classic case in point, Andrew Tate, who's just been taken down in the last 24 hours, arrested by Romanian militia or police for purported human trafficking and prostitution ring, all of that stuff. Curiously enough, he only recently came out multiple times on his endless podcasting and strutting online saying, I did not kill myself. I am not suicidal. There is no point at which I would ever commit suicide. They are coming for me. They will. It's just a matter of time. And of course, bada boom, he gets into a fracas 48 hours ago with Greta the Twat Thunberg, or whatever her name is, on climate change issues. And the Romanian authorities move in, swoop in, nail him. I don't know if you're following him or this much, but he is a recently freed titan of the social media platform on Twitter. Of course, he and Trump were really the preeminent figures that Elon Musk freed from their Fabianist cage. And subsequent to that, 2 or 3 weeks later, he's hit this kind of meta stardom precisely because of it. It's almost like they've orchestrated Andrew Tate overnight into the stratosphere in order to then what? Create a theatrical production connected to traffic. What do you think's going on there? Can you speak to it?
I can't speak to that. I don't know the allegations, if there's anything credible to it. I mean, I think that he's a very controversial figure, kind of like Jordan Peterson, but in some ways even more so because of some allegations in the past about physical abuse and violence. And I think the problem is that sometimes you swing too much, you get hyper masculinity, right? It becomes too centered on masculine anger. And it's like it's characters like Alex Jones, who I like Alex, and he's a great, he's done great work, but there's a lot of anger in him, right? And it's like you can only go so far if we're moving into a higher dimensional understanding and frequency, right? Where we really do have to shift out of the egoic perspective, whether it's male, female. It's like all these things. That's good. We have to be able to see from the other side, and so you need the people that are the peacemakers, that are able to facilitate that dialogue and not get entrenched with their anger about how things are, because the anger is on all sides, right? It's the anger of, it's, you know, the same thing that the left is doing with, you know, their anger of,
Right.
you know, oppression and whatever it is. And, you know, then there's justification for their anger, but they're using it in a negative way, the same way that some on the
True.
right are using the anger in a negative way. So we have to be very mindful of how we use the anger from a place of, okay, let's use it for positive purposes. Let's use it for productive. Let's not hate each other with it. Let's not turn each other against, let's not turn one against another. So there is this common ground. So with someone like Tate, I don't really know enough about him to you know, comment or know what's real with this case or not. Obviously, yes, you're right. It's very predictable how these things oftentimes occur. I mean, look at Trump. I mean, from day one, it was, you know, he's raped women, coming out with rape allegations, and the tax return stuff and the Russiagate stuff. And I mean, obviously most of it didn't stick. Doesn't
And
mean he's
racist, you know, every
and again, it doesn't mean that, like, he's an egomaniac. Absolutely. You know, is he very problematic in that regard? Yes. So, you know, you have to recognize that people have their strengths and they have their weaknesses, but you can't pedestalize anyone either. We have to recognize that, yeah, you know what, he's flawed, you're flawed, I'm flawed, we're all flawed. So it's important as we move forward, I think, in the culture, to get past, in order to get past cancel culture, is to stop pedestalizing people, so that we just realize, yeah, people are flawed. And can we, in the old way of community, hear each other? Okay, you know what? Yes, we take ownership of our mistakes, of where we hurt people, of where we're hurting ourselves, but we're not there yet. You know, our culture is still fixated on, you know, you're wrong, you must be punished, purgatory for you, hell for you, right? We're still in that mentality. And, you know, it's wonderful when you think, yeah, you know, Fauci's going to go to Guantanamo, but it's like, but ultimately, is that going to evolve us as a society? Or is it going to say, hey, how do we transform our society so we don't have a Fauci in a position to play God, to even, you know, have this kind of power for 40 years of administrations, to do experimentation with, you know, biowarfare experiments, essentially, and to control public health policy this way, and to profit from it this way? Like, how have we created such a corrupt system in the first place, right? That's what we're obviously, I think, more interested in, system busting, right? Creating more holistic systems where you don't get someone who's in a position of, you know, unchecked power.
Indeed. You know, you've been kind of connected because of your familial connections to the story of the CIA and JFK assassination, and it seems that the mainstream media, in a sense, are finally sort of moving the lens toward CIA and their involvement in the JFK assassination. Put it this way: it is one of those Rubicons, if not the seminal Rubicon, in the modern geopolitical and socio-political sort of matrix. We have to address that. We can't not address that. It's like 9/11. Yeah, sure, 9/11. Let's get to that. But first, let's get back to when a fucking bullet entered the brain of a sitting president by its own militia. That's really the key piece, isn't it? Do you think that we're seeing a mainstream confessional emerging, a necessary one, around CIA and JFK? Obviously, you've been a part of this with your dad's movie and the attacks on him that came about after its release. But can you talk to the Arise audience briefly about what these admissions might mean and how you see that it might affect truth coming forth in all areas?
Yeah, I mean, so there's clearly there's no admission from the CIA. What we are seeing is some new documentation. Obviously, not all the documents have been released. There's still
but they're letting it happen.
Suppressed.
They're kind of letting it happen, right?
Yeah, but there is obviously there's a little bit more being divulged. And then there was Tucker Carlson had someone, basically an unknown informant that he trusts, basically say that yes, it looks like, from his experience and research and looking into even, I think, the archives that were unreleased, that the CIA was involved in the assassination. Well, look, most people believe that if you looked at the American public polling from 1967, I think, or 68, I mean, to the present, the majority of people believed he was not killed by a lone gunman. So I don't think we're seeing anything tectonic really shifting. I think that there's an important opening when someone like Tucker does say that, you know, on TV, and does make, you know, does just give the, you know, lay out some facts for people to, you know, to say, look, it doesn't add up. You know, who is Jack Ruby? Obviously, there's other elements that a lot of people have claimed, which never gets talked about, which is basically Kennedy's opposition to the Israel developing the nuclear weapons. And there, Ruby obviously was Jewish, and there was other connections, like, whether or not there were more of, certainly to the mafia connections to the assassination, whether or not there was more of an Jewish Israeli role, certainly Masonic elements. But it's like with Kennedy, you get this, what's beautiful about the Kennedy thing is it's why people I think are fascinated by it, is that you get this amazing convergence of everyone wanting this guy dead, right?
Yeah.
From because whatever, you could say Masons because he was Catholic, you could say the banking system because essentially he was starting to issue some currency from the treasury. That was the $2 bills and the $5 bills that they actually issued, and he was actually signing that deal with the Indonesian president at the time.
Sukarno, that's right.
Right, Sukarno, about basically to use their gold, or to use their gold to back
that was the Green Hilton.
a whole new economy, I think, for the world.
That's right.
And so that was a major issue. There was obviously the Vietnam War, which he was opposed to, really in bringing America in. They were going to advise and support South Vietnam, but I don't think he was going to commit hundreds of thousands of ground troops as we did.
Right.
So there was, and then obviously the Cubans were pissed at him, the mafia was pissed at him. So you have everyone, is ready to pick up a gun, right? And the question is how it was orchestrated. I think it's bigger than CIA. I think it's, you're talking about British intelligence, you're talking about really the heart of the Rome. I mean, talking about exactly the heart of the establishment, the global establishment, right? Coming together to collude. And how was that done? Who was the first person to say, this is going to happen? How ritualistic? The killing of the king, the 33rd degree line, what was it? 33rd degree parallel in Dallas.
Yep.
There's some other Masonic things. I mean, I pointed out a long time ago that I've even heard people say, look, even Joe knew this was going to come and they actually were okay because they said, look, Jack was not healthy. John Kennedy, JFK was not healthy. He had some really debilitating issues, and his back was problems. And basically they were like, if it's going to come, do it in a way that is, symbolic. So I don't know, like there's so many factors to this. There's so many factors to this assassination that it's why it's such a fascinating real. And even the alien question, right? People have written about John Kennedy wanting to, disclose more about the alien topic to the public and get that information out there. So you can speculate all day, but I don't think we'll ever get to that question of who picked up a phone the first time or had a meeting the first time and said, we're going to basically, this is going to be done.
So where did the kill shot come from? Come on.
Well, that's the question. I love to think that the limo driver turned around and that
didn't happen.
Zapruder,
No, it was
the Zapruder film got edited, right? Because it obviously is the easiest shot to pull off,
right, is
within the limo. But there's Roselli, the idea of Roselli in the gutter, right? In the front. There's obviously the grassy knoll shot, which is clear. I think there's some pretty good photographic evidence that there was
the warehouse, right? The warehouse,
and then there were two exactly. There would have been there was not just where Oswald was, but there was another building next to it that basically had a better shot. So it was like, I mean, you easily triangulate, maybe even 4 different angles, but there was no way he would survive.
Where was Bush Senior on the day?
Yeah, I mean, Bush Senior, that was a memo that Hoover, the FBI director at the time, has, where he says George Bush of the CIA was brought in for the debrief, basically, by them. He was in Dallas, and whether or not he was in Dealey Plaza, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised that he was, but he definitely was involved with a lot of the CIA stuff at that time because of his family.
Yeah.
And they would use his oil derricks. I think he had some offshore oil stuff that they would use for some of their Cuban operations when they were doing, the Cubans were constantly doing, not just the Cubans, CIA and Cubans were basically constantly doing preparation for war against Castro, right? Operation Mongoose, right? So so that was kind of George Bush Senior, and yeah, I mean, Clint Murchison, their buddy, and it's just LBJ. Was certain either he knew in advance or he was pretty quickly told, that he figured out the deal pretty quickly. I think he probably knew in advance because he hated Kennedy and he was probably going to get kicked off the ticket.
And he was deeply involved with the Cosa Nostra as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sure. And CIA and military contracts.
But then what became of the Lee Harvey Oswalds and the Timothy McVeigh type characters, of which we could count really hundreds through history, going back to the assassination of Franz Ferdinand, the onset of the First World War, And really in the last 100-odd years, we could go back and look at almost every major event that occurred in terms of assassinations and what have you, of which there have been hundreds. And almost every single one of them is a Manchurian candidate. Not all, but almost all are Manchurian candidates. Who or what are these characters, and where are they found? What happens to them if they themselves don't get killed in prison cells? I mean, it's just such a weird fucking scenario.
You know, Gore Vidal got close to McVeigh a little bit. They corresponded, and Vidal ultimately did some work saying basically that McVeigh did not act alone, which was clear. He couldn't have done it. Vidal was saying, you know, you can't do it. It's just like Oswald. You just can't. You can't do it. You know, physically. You know, technically, physically, it doesn't work. So, you know, again, McVeigh was a different character. I think he was a patriot, right? That got caught up probably with some militia thing that, you know, gets spun out of control. It's like look, we saw in the recent decades how the FBI co-opted so many of these terrorists, right? Like 95% plus of the terrorists that they captured in those decades were basically all had FBI informants or agents kind of, hey, you don't want to go blow up this building, or hey, let's go buy some guns, you know, and just stupid stuff, you know, like, hey, if you buy a gun, oh, great, we got you on, you know, potential, you know, plot, you know, to assassinate someone. It really gets tricky how they manipulate people. So someone like Oswald, I think that came out recently that the CIA was doing, we know this, you know, MK Ultra drug experiments at the base where he was. And so whether he was recruited at that time, it's pretty clear that he was connected to intelligence. You know, he was Marine, whether it was ONI, and, you know, and CIA, or, you know, whatever, because he was close to Dave Ferry, who was a consistent CIA guy, contractor, and Guy Bannister, who was also a naval intelligence and former FBI guy. And he was, you know, and he was close to them. Clay Bertrand, who's the film JFK is about, you know, he was also CIA, which they lied about at the time, of course, it came out. So it's like the fact that Oswald's in this circle of all these CIA guys. And then one libertarian friend of mine posts, you know, of course, you know, the government's too incompetent. Of course, Oswald did it alone because he was a communist. I'm like, so the story is Oswald, this communist, kills the president that's known as soft on communism, right? Because Kennedy was known as soft on communism. So that really makes sense, right? I mean, it's like, what is, you know, just so funny how people get caught up with their, you know, their worldview, right? And it's like, they don't want to hear the evidence.
Listen, what are you up to in 2023? Give us a little lowdown.
I'm putting things together, so I'm not going to announce really what I'm working on, but I am putting projects together as a writer and director. And right now I have some workshops that people can check out. As you mentioned at the beginning, the Art of Success and Heart Magic are both beautiful workshops that can help people just tune into themselves. So, you know, it's the inner work, it's the soul work. And we all need support sometimes. So no shame in that, no shame in looking at joining others and doing group activity, or in this case, these are online, but I might be doing some more workshops. We'll see. I think I'm going to see you at the Conscious Life Expo for all, if all goes well.
Oh, great. I'll be there. Excellent. That's in February.
Right. Yeah. People should sign up. Exactly. Conscious Life Expo in LA.
Sign up for me, people. Okay. No, sign up for Sean. If you like me, sign up for Sean. If you like whacked out hippies, sign up for me. So folks, again, one more time, Sacha, Seanstone.info, Seanstone.info, or Patreon/Sean Stone. Brother, very much look forward to seeing you in February, and thank you for untangling a few knots for us.
That's a pleasure. It's good to see you.